All right, everybody, let's get started now. Today is our third month this year on these workshops that we're doing. For those of you who've been to our last couple, we did one that was basically goal setting. How do we set financial goals and things of that nature? Last month, we did estate planning, all right? What are wills? What are trusts? How should we set them up? When should we set them up? That kind of stuff. And today is actually about planning for retirement. So planning for retirement is pretty much the reason why we have a 401k. Yes, we get incentives like tax deductions and things of that nature, but the main reason we do that is to get us ready for retirement. And that's what we're going to kind of talk about today. This box is a simplistic box called the 4-box strategy. And basically what it's saying is, can we line up our retirement accounts with our expenses? So when you do, if I explain this just for 1 second, when you do a budget for your retirement, a lot of times what you want to do is you want to split them in 2 different columns, your needs and your wants. So now if you look at the chart here, you're going to see that on the right-hand side, we have our necessary expenses and our discretionary expenses. Basically line up with those 2 different columns that I was talking about in that budget. And we're going to want to find out what are our necessary expenses and what are our discretionary expenses. I know some are going to always be one or the other, right? Housing, food, clothing, healthcare. That's always going to be a necessary expense. But for you, there could be other necessary expenses, right? If we look at discretionary expenses, where it says here, travel, hobbies, other, well, maybe some of those travels or maybe some of those hobbies are also necessary expenses for you. Basically what they're asking is this is not a challenge question to say, hey, you should have these needs, you should have these wants. That's not what they're saying. What they're asking is how we need to find out the amount of money we're spending every month. Right? If that means we travel every month, that needs to be in that necessary expense. So if we're averaging, let's say, a monthly expense of $5,000, but throughout our years, we know we're always spending $4,000, we know our necessary expense is $4,000, and our $1,000 expense of what's left over is our discretionary. So just so you do know, think of what's necessary for you, not just what you could read on Google saying what a necessary expense is. Because at the end of the day, you're retiring, you're creating your own dream. You're not letting someone else create your dream for you. So we understand what our expenses are. Now, how do we line up our assets? And that right there is on the left-hand side of your column, where you see the predictable income in blue and you see income from assets in orange. Now, if you remember way earlier on the presentation, we talked about you need your assets to do 3 things, right? Grow, have access to them, and be predictable. So this is going to more depth of why, basically. What we're going to want to do is we're going to want to line up our predictable income with our necessary expenses. So I use an example of someone who averages $5,000 a month, but they're always spending $4,000. So they need their necessary expenses are going to be $4,000. Well, that means they need their predictable income to be $4,000. And they could use things like Social Security. Do they have pensions? Some income annuities are guaranteed. It's a whole other subject we're not getting into, but we need guaranteed income, maybe some rental income or something like that, something that's predictable. And then the other side, our discretionary, is our income from our assets. These are portions of our portfolio that we have invested in things like the stock market and stuff like that, where we could choose when we want to take that money out, when we don't. Last couple of days, we might have seen some issues with the stock market. It may not be the best time to take money out, but maybe in a week or 2 weeks or 2 months or whatever the case might be, maybe better time. So our discretionary expenses are ones we can control. So our discretionary income are things we should control. And the reason we're going to want those investments like that is we still want to make sure we have growth. And that's the account. Those are the investments that are going to grow more than the predictable income.